Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Pitch by Revolution.Aero. If you have attended the Revolution.Aero conference before, you will be familiar with the pitch competition. Early stage companies pitch their business ideas to a panel of expert judges who assess the viability for market. And we have a very exciting set of companies today. As with every pitch competition, we have received a high number of applications, so thank you to everyone who reached out to us. Without further ado, I would like to invite our expert panel of judges for today to introduce themselves on stage. First, we have Katerina Barlow from Jump.Aero,
Hi,
Jim
everybody.
Lockheed from Jetblue Technology Ventures, Yesh Premkumar from Hyundai Urban Air Mobility, and lastly, but by no means the least, Dean Donovan from Diamond Stream. Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Katerina, would you like to go first, please? We'd love an introduction.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'll keep it brief. For those of you who don't know me, I began my career at Hawker Beechcraft, working in structured finance. From there, I went on to do investment banking at Goldman Sachs, focused on aviation and aerospace. Realized there that I wasn't as excited about working with larger companies doing very big deals that I was working with entrepreneurs. Started my own firm, helping entrepreneurs think through their growth and fundraising efforts, and did that for a number of years before joining Carl Dietrich, who's now my co-founder, working on Jump.Aero, which is an eVTOL focused on first response applications.
Jim, would you like to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Jim Lockheed, I'm an investment principal with Jetblue Technology Ventures. My background is a mix of aerospace and entrepreneurship. I started my career as a F-15 avionics technician in the Air Force, and then went on to work for a company called In Situ that had just been acquired by Boeing doing long-range surveillance drones. So I spent a good number of years in my early 20s actually as a ScanEagle surveillance drone operator, and living in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, working on a military base as a Boeing employee. I left Boeing to go get an MBA from the University of Oregon, and had always had a big interest in entrepreneurship. And so I decided to start a company that was really focused on trying to explore commercial use cases for drones. And so we got a 333 exemption, I think it was in 2013, and basically tried to go out and try to find business in any field that we can, any category that we can. Started a tangent of about 6 years where I was working on my own companies. I ended up buying another company in the Pacific Northwest. And a handful of years later, I had a great opportunity to sell that first company that I'd started to a competitor of mine. And in thinking about exactly what I wanted to be doing next, I actually wanted to try and start something much bigger, much more scalable. So I started learning about venture and how people actually grow high growth companies. And there was kind of a point where I just thought, if I don't know exactly what I want to build, this sounds like a fascinating place to be working and helping other people build their own companies. Moved to the Bay Area, tried to meet everyone that I could, spent some time kind of scouting at another firm, and joined JetBlue Technology Ventures a bit over 2 years now. And for the quick overview on JetBlue Technology Ventures, we're the corporate venture arm of JetBlue Airways. We're specifically set up in San Francisco, San Carlos to be exact, so that we are away from headquarters, out of the regular decision-making process, but we are started basically to be a external source of innovation for the company that's just purely looking at early stage technology, early stage startups, what could potentially be being missed by the large airline. We operate as a early stage investor, typically in the seed to maybe Series B round. And we basically invest in anything that's travel related. So yes, everything that's commercial aviation related, operations, maintenance, all of that, but also anything that basically affects customer experience, how they book travel, what they do, where they go, what they do for entertainment, tourism, hospitality. And we also have a big interest in sustainability as it aligns obviously really nicely with JetBlue's ESG goals. So that's the quick once over. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Yesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Hello all. I'm Yesh Premkumar. I'm with Hyundai's newest division, the Urban Air Mobility Division. Sunday's trying to build an aircraft. And along with that, the entire ecosystem that goes with the aircraft. And I should rather say that we feel that the aircraft fits within the larger ecosystem, and what we are trying to do is develop both the market and the products that go into the market simultaneously. So as such, I work within the partnership team. My fundamental focus is infrastructure and ecosystem, trying to understand how we can look at the market, everything that's required in the market that is not the aircraft. How do we work with the industry partners, develop the right partnership, the partnership structures, and the business models, such that we can create this massive ecosystem required for air mobility that doesn't quite exist for the levels of commercialization and scaling that we're looking at. And as such, me and my team, we look at partnership both in the public and the private domain. And very excited to see what we're going to hear today from this panel. As background, I worked at BAE Systems for quite some time, 16 plus years, I think. And in the time there, I was predominantly responsible for market and product development for the markets. Helped develop the maritime market and the zero emission market in propulsion for a few businesses within BAE Systems. Moved into, so spent a lot of time on ground and surface transportation, bus, truck, and boats were my domain. Moved into aviation a few years ago. It was really fascinating. I thought I would be really bored in the aviation space because it takes so long to create something, but it has been anything but that. So really excited to be here and to be with this fantastic panel. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Yesh. Dean.
Great. Thanks, Yvonne. Dean Donovan from Diamond Stream Partners. Diamond Stream is an investor in advanced aerial mobility, so that's our focus. Super excited about what's going on in the space. And we come from the standpoint of understanding what really drives growth in aviation markets, and then trying to invest behind things that will either benefit from that growth that's driven by technology and that can serve existing markets. So a lot of things that serve existing aviation markets will be successful in the new aviation markets as well. So super excited about all of that. We've made 3 investments in our current fund, including Ampere, Elroy, which was a winner of this competition a few years ago, and Green Power Monitoring Systems, which does predictive maintenance for rotorcraft. So excited to be here. My background is a long one in aviation. I ran the aviation practice at Bain. I ran the automobile practice at Bain, so I'm well-versed in all things transportation, and was also a founder of Volaris, which is Mexico's largest commercial aviation carrier. And that experience pertains a lot to what's going on in aviation right now, because when you take cost out and you shorten transport times for people and or goods, you drive demand, which is what Volaris did and what we're expecting all the new technologies in this market to help do. So we're very excited about that.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you a lot. You know, it's great to have you guys here. I mean, most of you would have seen the live events and the pitch competition. So let's get right into it. We have, as I said before, very exciting set of companies. So without further ado, I want to kick off with Bistribution. So I'm going to invite Mario Danner, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Bistribution, to come up and share some slides and introduce the company and take it away. Hey, Mario.
So thank you and welcome, everybody. Although traveling has been drastically reduced in the last months, I'm sure you can remember booking your last trip. And wherever you search and book your hotel, you get loads of possibilities to travel and refine based on personal preferences. By stars and rating, by property type, by location, by services and amenities, you name it. And of course, you would expect a similar experience in 2021 when booking your flights. But instead, you only get these very basic search criteria, no matter which airline or meta search site you use. Second, you're not even able to refine and personalize your results as airlines and alliances let you sort but not filter. All additional requests are available only after locking in a specific flight. Travel meta search sites at least offer filtering, but choices of customization are still narrowed to very basic criteria, and comparability between results is often impossible without further effort and research. After comparing what services are included, seat pitch, airlines and transfer airports, etc. by your own, you choose a flight. And in the next step, to your surprise, the displayed price or flight is no longer available. Hidden costs pop up, or cabin baggage turns out to be only a small bag which has to fit under your seat. So you have to start all over again looking for the best flight offer. And this adds up with confusing or slow websites, and you end up with only 14% of travelers satisfied with booking travel online or via apps. But why is air travel distribution so far behind the shopping experience we are used to from digital platforms or online shopping sites? Why do we have more selection criteria when buying a €5 item than for a flight? As a passenger, I would love to include a window seat or specific add-ons already in my original itinerary, and consider customer experience differentiators and USPs from airlines, such as seat pitch and overall customer satisfaction, right at the original itinerary. And in the future, book door-to-door, including intermodal transport. Maybe the nearest airport is not the most convenient at all for me. And take environmental criteria into account, such as actual CO2 emissions of my trip or offered CO2 offset programs. And of course, that would be also in the best interest of airlines and the whole air travel industry, as it would strengthen the customer-centric approach and customer satisfaction, and leads to additional revenue possibilities from ancillary services and other add-ons. So, results based on passenger needs and not based on technical limitations. Because one of the main reasons for the lack of customer centricity in air travel distribution, since decades, it is dominated by the same GDS oligopoly. GDSs run on a pre-internet era business model and rely on outdated technology. Their systems control what content and how content can be offered and displayed, and how often it can be updated. But they are highly profitable, as they are still the necessary middlemen, controlling over 55% of the market. Costs for the airline sector are more than €7.7 billion per year. Since 2 decades, airlines are trying to shift away and regain control over their content by reinforcing their direct sales channels on the one hand, and through new industry-wide initiatives such as IATA New Distribution Capability, NDC, and One Order, with limited success so far. NDC and One Order are now mainly offered by GDSs or content aggregators. So again, middlemen. And this is where we come into play, because distribution was founded specifically to create an alternative for air travel distribution from greenfield. We propose a paradigm shift with a new business model and new technology, with an efficient, state-of-the-art and fair solution that benefits the whole industry and is built on industry's demand. As described in the current centralized model, the information is clustered and managed by a few in an oligopolistic, costly, and unfair market, limiting innovation and customization. In contrast, our solution decentralizes the travel industry distribution model to create a customer-centric ecosystem. Distribution is based on the deployment of a decentralized business network, relying on enterprise-grade permission blockchain technology as base layer and additional in-house developed technology on top. One important point, we are not another GDS or another middleman. We offer a blockchain as a service solution created specifically for air travel. This focus allows us to provide the best possible distribution solution for airlines and the air travel sector, without compromises and workarounds. The architecture has been designed to satisfy the needs of the industry in terms of privacy, security, high transaction throughput performance, and low latency. And that's also why we focus on running industry assets on blockchain without cryptocurrencies and tokens. Furthermore, there is full privacy between parties. Information will only be accessible to those participants entitled to do so, for example, collaboration partners. And the distribution nature increases resilience against outages. Finally, it's very easy to connect. There is no need for stakeholders to cut over from the current internal distribution and IT systems, as only one API integration is necessary to access all the content. This makes distribution the sole solution based on permission blockchains currently on the market, ready to scale to fulfill air travel industry needs. Other new entrants with blockchain-powered marketplaces either lack the needed industry know-how or technology or the technical viability, or even both, which led to design decisions that make their products, in our view, unsuitable for the specifics of airline distribution. And as described, GDSs, they have little interest in change. Distribution was created by industry experts with more than 50 years experience in GDSs and 20 years in aviation. And they needed extensive technical and blockchain background on top. This enabled us to develop all developments in-house. We estimate that distribution enables stakeholders to reduce their distribution costs drastically by 40%, thanks to our savings revenue model and more efficient operations in a collaborative, fully decentralized and neutral ecosystem. For example, through offering push-ready synchronization, there is no need for continuous querying of backends as has to be done in the current pull model, enabling stakeholders to provide real-time information at much lesser cost. At the same time, our solution enables stakeholders to generate new revenue streams and to deploy their own view of contents and customized offers, code shares, and interlines. There are no limits for rich content, such as personalization, ancillary services. And of course, we are NDC and continuous pricing capable. And on top, stakeholders regain control over their information. Content and customers, as the single source of truth, is the content creator, which improves their agility and makes it easier for them to react to current developments or changes in customer behavior, leading hopefully to a customer-centric and sustainable air travel distribution future. The current air travel distribution model represents a barrier for growth, innovation, and new markets development. A change is possible and necessary, as it not only harms airlines, but the whole air travel industry and eventually all travelers. Fortunately, we're not the only ones with this belief, as we were able to attract interest and support from major airline groups, some of the most innovative airlines around, and IATA, and from travel agencies and travel management companies. Our solution consists of 3 elements: flight search, a base layer and central element, and booking and payment on top. The setup and programming of flight search is completed, and together with our existing partners, we are co-creating and challenging what we have built so far, with the aim to complete elements 2 and 3 based on our findings and the priorities and go productive next year. But not only air travel stakeholders believe in our idea. Institutionally, we received support, especially from the European Commission. Phase 1 was founded by EU Horizon 2020, and we received overall 4 seals of excellence, 3 of them in accelerated stage. And CDTI, the innovation agency of the Spanish government, where we received a grant this year for further developing our solution. Additionally, we are part of the IBM and Amazon partnership programs, showing their willingness to be part of our solution. And as we are using Hyperledger Fabric as blockchain technology, we are members of the Hyperledger Foundation, as the sole company, not only from the airline sector, but travel and tourism overall. So thank you for your time. I hope you are interested, as we're looking for additional partners for co-creation in our solution, future customers and cooperation partners, and investment and funding to further develop our solution. As with all digital platforms, the more stakeholders are on board, the better a platform works. And of course, we are more than happy to give you more insights or a live demo of what we have built so far anytime in one-on-one sessions.
Mario, thank you so much. That was great. I'm going to invite Dean to come up with any thoughts or questions for Mario. We have a few minutes to discuss.
Yeah, I have a question for you, which is, it seems like you're spanning both sort of search, which the OTAs do, but also sort of what the PSS systems do. The GDSs obviously have a lot of market power, especially for people who didn't start their own airlines. But what are the advantages on the PSS side of this versus, say, what Navitaire does today?
First of all, the content creator is also the owner in our system. So you need only one API to connect to our system. So you can run on all systems you have at the moment. And a problem, of course, you have at many aggregators, they are only able to display like 5 or 10% of the content, as they don't get enough from airlines and other partners. And in our systems, the content would be provided directly by the content creator, like the airlines.
Okay, but I mean, Navitaire won't provide search functionality, but it does have a set of tools that enables the airlines to provide their own content, right? So, I mean, it's direct to consumer. You don't have the GDS travel agency connections. So I'm not completely clear.
Yeah. I actually if okay for you, I will come back to you with a more extensive answer to that, as I can't answer it in just some seconds.
Okay.
Together with probably with Juan Antonio, who is the CEO and who's the technical mastermind behind all of distribution.
Okay.
Jim, did you have a question for Mario?
I absolutely do. Thank you, Mario. Great presentation. One of the things I'd like to, ask you about is there are a number of kind of next generation connectivity focused companies, a lot focused on NDC, a lot focused on other, interesting models of connecting airlines to different types of marketplaces or other types of distribution points. And I'm curious how you think about those. And some of them also are, based on blockchain. But I'm curious, one, maybe why we haven't seen any of them gain, massive market share yet, and two, kind of really what you think differentiate yourself from a lot of them, where a fair amount of them have kind of a similar pitch. We're going to add all the flexibility, dynamic capabilities, everything that airlines can't do now, but they want to do.
Yeah. Generally, there are, as I said before, we are not the first ones and we're not the only ones. And all of us, we are fighting against the mighty GDS sector, as Dean said. We know the market power they have, and it comes up at almost every meeting we're having with airlines or other stakeholders. Our big advantage compared to the other providers is that we are really focused on air travel, and we are also air travel experts. And as you can see at some of the other platforms, and as I wanted to show you before without naming any of them, it also comes down to which technology you use or which technology you're able to provide. And as we are only focused on air travel, we were able to start from greenfield and say, okay, what is the best technology we have to use to make it working for air travel? And this is how we came up to, for example, with Hyperledger Fabric as our blockchain technology. But because if you use Ethereum or some of the other blockchain technologies which are available at the market, it's not going to work. It's too slow. The consonance times are too long. It's not a private blockchain, it's a public blockchain. So you are sharing with all participants more or less so you have no privacy between the parties involved. And so this is one of the main reasons if you compare it with the current other providers. And as I said, we have a very the other blockchain technologies, like one of the biggest competitors who is using Ethereum. We all see the issues they have concerning latency, concerning speed, concerning also that you have to pay for every transaction. And in the meantime, Ethereum is, I don't know, at $3,000, $4,000. So every transaction is around, I don't know, 300 euros or so, or $300.
Great.
And sorry, one more point I wanted to add is One big issue we see with these platforms as well is that they try to tokenize the content, which won't work in the airline industry. If you have to use cryptocurrency and tokenization, it won't work. Also, because all the availabilities in the market will be shared with other participants. One of the reasons. But again, Jim, we are more than happy to come back to you and give you a more thorough presentation and show you what we have built so far, and coming back to these points in a one-to-one concerning also our competitors.
Sure. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, guys. We've run out of time for questions, but I'm going to invite the next speaker, and we will have time at the end for any further comments. So without further ado, I'd love to invite Binish Waris, who's the Strategic Business Development Head at D3 Technologies, to come up, share some slides, and present the company's vision. Hi, Binish. Take it away.
Hi. Flying started as a dream, ripe with ideas of what going through open skies would mean for people and progress. Then it became an adventure, and soon a luxury, meant for those who could afford it, a symbol of socioeconomic status. Today, flying is a commodity. But we don't want flying in our urban skies to be a luxury or an adventure. We want flying in our city skies to be safe, and we want it to be accessible, because we believe anyone should be able to fly whenever they want. But what does this actually look like? Well, flying as we know today is heavy on human interaction between pilot and controller. But slowly we are moving towards automation. Within our urban skies, a lot of this interaction will be machine work. And this trend towards automation, also within aviation, started already in the 1950s, when by leveraging technology, we were already able to reduce the number of people needed in the cockpit to fly an aircraft. So flying in our city skies will be automated. But automated flying also means we need digital infrastructure. And that is what we as D3 are building. A platform for fail-safe and automated air traffic management for our city skies. And we enable the involvement of our city representatives who represent the local communities, so that urban air mobility does not only become accessible for everyone, it is done the way people want it. But of course, opening up our city skies is not an easy task, and it comes with its challenges. The first one being, will people actually accept it? And those of us who are fans of sci-fi would love to see what we saw in the Jetsons or Back to the Future. But what does this actually mean in reality? Imagine walking down the road one day and you look above, and instead of the blue sky, or a cloudy one, depending on where you are, you see drones and air vehicles buzzing around. Do we want to see that? To what degree do we want that in our cities? In what areas of our cities do we want that? Well, our platform gives cities the autonomy to make these decisions, to open up their urban airspaces and monetize them the way they see fit and the way that it is conducive for the local communities inhabiting these cities. And of course, the second challenge is technology. Are we able to do it? Isn't it too difficult? We are a team of serial entrepreneurs and industrial experts, and we believe we are up to this challenge. Kevin Huber, our CEO and CTO, has managed and turned around several aircraft manufacturing companies. Tim Kriegelstein, a serial entrepreneur, brings in a proven track record of 10 years in innovation and marketing. Otto Bommer was a program manager building the mission management computer of Airbus A400M, one of the most complex avionics systems in the last 20 years. And Rolf Schopenhauer, who built the air traffic control in Karlsruhe. So not only do we have the industrial expertise, we have the passion to back it. But well, seeing is believing, and we aim to do exactly that. We will build a live demonstrator in our local Bavarian region in late summer, where we will actually work with actual flight and route data, as well as test flights. And this grandiose vision of opening up our city skies is, of course, too much to take on for just one company. So we partner with other technology firms and air vehicle manufacturers to come up with a procedural and implementation plan. How to get passengers to the air vehicles to their destination and back, and to do all of this safely. That's what we're working on together. Additionally, we are working with the Canadian Advanced Air Mobility Consortium, where we are working with over 40 industrial partners and working as a use case with existing cities like Vancouver, who already today have 54 landing sites that we can use. But we also need you. In late summer, we will be raising a round of 10 million for our Series A, and we invite you to participate and join us in this journey to build safe roads in the skies. Thank you.
Thanks, Binish. That was great. I'm going to invite Yesh to pose the first question or comment for this presentation.
Thanks, Ron. Hey, Binish. Great presentation. Obviously, I know D3. I'm a fan. I like what you guys are doing. Just some questions in terms of the solution that you're offering, which is the digital infrastructure for automated flights in a fail-safe environment. How does that solution per se integrate with the aircraft? Meaning, how does this become like, you know, a solution that everyone can utilize or network into? What's the interface? Is there a hardware, or is this all just based on a comm interface?
Right. So our solution consists of course, an avionics, a hardware part, and software as well on top. The hardware part is basically a flight guarding system that we can integrate in air vehicles that serves as a, let's say, for layman terminology, as a backup, so that in the case of an emergency, it still has all the data present to make sure the aircraft gets from point A to point B that it had originally planned on getting. And then, of course, our infrastructure means that we will have several different aircrafts within communicating with our system and planning routes, so that we can also sort of maximize the airspace capacity.
If I may just follow up on that one piece. So there is the aircraft, and then there is the city above which this urban air mobility space will exist. And there is a theory that there's going to be multiple, you know, traffic management systems, multiple operators, multiple OEMs, right, within this complex ecosystem. So how does your digital infrastructure now interface with the city or the operators? What do they have to do? From the aircraft, seems like there's a specific piece of hardware that allows access to your digital infrastructure. What happens on the other front?
What happens to what?
On the other front, like, you know, on the cities, the operators, how does your solution integrate with that? Is there another interface, or does it have to be that a city has to use D3's infrastructure as a whole? Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Right. So our digital infrastructure will actually be hyper local, because, of course, we also envision that as of now, the industry is relatively early stage, but slowly there will be regulation about different even levels of airspace and how to utilize it properly. So yes, cities can potentially use our system but in their own local environment. So we will also be targeting sort of regions or cities that want to take this initiative and then dealing with them on a case-by-case and local basis. So depending on whether they want the air corridor to be, let's say, one by one, aircrafts going in one by one, or whether they want that it should be with a safe distance, as is projected to be the case in Europe, that highly depends on the local context, and we will be dealing with that accordingly, so cities can safely use our digital infrastructure and cater to the local communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Beanish. Thanks, judges. We're going to move on with the next presentation, which is from Orca Aerospace. We have co-founder Zsolt Koltai, who's going to be coming up to present Orca Aerospace.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Yeah. Good afternoon. Good morning. My name is Zsolt Koltai, co-founder of Orca Aerospace, and it is my pleasure to present you today our eVTOL electric vertical and takeoff and landing aircraft, especially tailored for emergency medical services. Our mission is to save more lives with sustainable aviation technology, and at the same time to make emergency medical operations a less cost-intensive business for both the operators and for the patient. Looking at emergency response situations, the problem and the numbers we are facing today are shocking. Only 1 minute delay of medical attention increases the patient's mortality rate by 2%, while according to the German ADAC, in the last 20 years, the overall response time of EMS increased by a dramatic 40%. Secondly, in many cases, helicopter EMS operators are struggling with unsustainable economic environment because it is just too expensive to operate a gas turbine helicopter on low and mid-range missions, considering the available flight hours per year for an operator. Finally, and most importantly, helicopter EMS operators have 2 times higher accident rate compared to other use cases of helicopter, simply because of the extreme circumstances of the mission. As an answer to these problems, we designed our Orca eVTOL to provide a faster, safer, and a more efficient alternative for HAMS operators to lower range missions. Through its tilt-rotor layout and electric propulsion, the Orca is capable of immediate vertical takeoff, but with its wing-borne flight, it can reach much higher cruise speed. The emergency parachute system and the high glide ratio, the redundant propulsion system, or the jettisonable battery modules are resolved in an incomparable safe flight, while the electric propulsion and the continuous system monitoring play a great role in lowering the operational and maintenance cost. Last but not least, through electric and usage of recycled composites, as an example in the interior, the Orca's environmental footprint is kept as low as possible. Regarding the aircraft itself, it is sized in dimensions to fit in the already existing heli infrastructure, and of course, based on the local regulations, could be included in the current air traffic control environment as well. The patented shape of the fuselage and wing is optimized for the lowest possible drag, the highest cruise speed. The aircraft accommodates a standard size stretcher, a doctor with all necessary medical equipment, and up to 2 pilots. With all this payload, the Orca estimated range is about 200 kilometers in VTOL mode, while thanks to the capability of conventional short takeoff and landing capability, this range can increase by 30%. The project has just completed the preliminary design stage, where the cornerstones of the recently released SC VTOL compliance list by the EASA was considered. We believe that eVTOL aircraft will serve us as the next generation of air transportation over the upcoming decades, but there is still significant time required to reach all the requirements of urban air taxi operations. EMS, however, is one of the first viable use cases whose range requirement and feasible with the already available technology has a high public acceptance and can be more easily integrated in the already existing air traffic infrastructure. Nevertheless, this is also true for firefighting operations, military applications, and offshore business continuity missions. Just to give a glimpse of economic aspects for a typical cardiac emergency, 1 minute of faster response translates into $1,500 US, of savings in hospital costs per patient, leading to a 7 billion reduction in US healthcare expenditures per year. And this is only a side effect. Of course, as soon as the urban air mobility ecosystem is mature enough, we can easily integrate the Orca into the air taxi or cargo transportation as well. Next to the unit selling, we will offer a training for personnel, leasing of our aircraft. Importantly, we approach vehicle maintenance service in an innovative way as well. We intended to partner up with a company who develops augmented reality solutions for aircraft maintenance, beneficial to further reduce the maintenance costs. A few words about the development roadmap we are already in. Currently, we are working on a subscale demonstrator model whose first flight test results are expected in the upcoming months. This model is now on the way to Munich, Germany on the Airbus's Why Stop at Zero event, where our startup is one of the finalists of Airbus's startup competition. With the first round of funding, we are seeking now. We will start a detailed design, and at the same time, we are going to develop a full-scale simulator for training purposes. Nevertheless, the first major investment will span until the tethered flight testing expected at the end of 2024. And our plan is to start the conversation and involve the competent authority very soon in the process. The second prototype for the overall flight tests will lead us to the type certification, hopefully by the end of 2026. Our design debuted on the Royal Aeronautical Society's International Aircraft Design Competition last year, where we landed on the podium. Also, as a common statement in aviation says, what looks good flies good. And we are very proud for our bronze award from the world's largest design award competition in Italy this year. We are already established a wide partner network in the industry. They span from the battery system developers through the world's largest composite manufacturer, right to aerospace moguls like the Netherlands Aerospace Center. Most importantly, we received a signed intention from the Hungarian Air Ambulance to be our first customer as Orca gets certified. Of course, we are very much aware of our competition. With the information available, of course, and without being exhaustive, we positioned ourselves as a low development cost and high safety concept. Low development cost because of the CEE geolocation and region we are in, and the smart integration of off-the-shelf solutions. High safety factors as a result of the multi-layered safety features of the aircraft compared to other eVTOLs and conventional helicopters. It is important to mention that from the very first sketches, the Orca was designed to be an easily scalable product thanks to its unique wing and fuselage layout. Looking on the figure, you can see that only the right time, right product, low development cost trinity will result in economically sustainable product. The founder team behind the Orca has more than 20 years of experience in LSA certification, design, and manufacturing. The founders are a combination of 4 engineers with previous history in the aerospace industry. Among them, we have aerospace engineers from the Technical University of Munich and a private pilot and a NASA Aircraft Design Challenge winner. Myself, I'm an avionics engineer and a former officer at the Hungarian Air Force, head of a development team at a GA manufacturer currently. And we have 2 mechanical engineers, talented guys graduated from the top universities of Hungary. Of course, we require guidance, especially during the initial phase of our startup. That is why, although we have highly experienced and renowned aerospace entrepreneurs and professionals as advisors, we're continuously looking for additional advisors who help to make the Orca reality. As a closing section, let's see our current investment round quickly. The first round fundraising campaign is collective investment is 1.5 million US, will allow us to develop the Orca and manufacture the composite skeleton from the first prototype. This is required to reach our most important milestone, the tethered flight, where we will test our electric propulsion system capability for hovering flight. Thank you so much for your attention. We are Orca Aerospace.
Thanks very much for that presentation. We're going to bring on Katerina for a question or a comment on this.
I think we're probably expecting to hear from me.
Yes.
I'm very, very excited to be the one asking the questions, because usually I'm the one sitting on the other side. So I know the questions that you get, and it would be great to see how you answer them. I know you're European based now. Are you planning on staying in Europe for your rollout? Like, are you targeting European EMS systems exclusively, or are you thinking globally?
We're thinking globally. Let's see what the future brings. We're already talking overseas as well, some people, but for the first round, we would like to stay in Europe.
Okay. And what's your plan for your business strategy in terms of, this is a very highly regulated space.
Yes.
And, there's, like, are you thinking about, providing like a lease and support model? Are you thinking about selling these aircraft directly to the operators, or how are you thinking of making money?
Yeah, yes. We would like to do selling the aircraft straight to the operators, but also we are thinking about leasing the manufacturing, to scale the company more easily. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, for like a purchase of an aircraft like that, where does it compare to a purchase of like an ambulance in terms of the amount that they would need to spend?
Like an ambulance?
Yeah, like an ambulance provider. Say, I run an ambulance company. I want to buy a new one of Orca, or I want to buy a new ambulance. Which is more expensive?
If you're talking about the ambulance car, it's probably going to be more expensive, but we would like to support the HAMS operators more with a more less cost intensive solution. So it's compared, for example, a helicopter, it's going to be much cheaper.
I see.
So we are trying to support the HAMS operators more, but of course, normal ambulance is also a thing we can.
Is your range similar to a helicopter's, or are you limited on your range compared to a helicopter? Are they going to need to buy
compared to helicopters? Of course, we're still limited, but on mid and low range missions where the helicopters can't be cost effective, then there we can help for the HAMS operators.
Okay, got it. And so I guess when you're thinking about like breaching the Europe market in coming to the United States, do you have a different plan for the United States, or do you have a similar plan in the United States versus Europe? Because I know that EMS systems are structured very differently.
Yes, we have to go country by country because, for example, the first glimpse, we wanted to have a single piloted version of the aircraft. But then we talked to the U.S. operators, and they said that it's not working in the U.S. You have to have two pilots for insurance reasons. And then we had to, redesign ourselves a little bit for that too, and thinking about this in the future, because obviously we're not knowing all the regulations in the countries for EMS operators, so we have to talk each of them. So that's what we are doing. We are trying to reach as many EMS and the HAMS operators we can reach. And
are you in Europe, which is your target rollout market, are you going to be going like for private companies, or are you thinking about like municipalities, like fire departments? And
we're planning to B2B, B2G. So also municipalities. In Hungary, it's only one operator, and we have to, look for private operators as well. So, yes, we are targeting private operators and also municipalities, cities, as well.
Got it. Okay, I think I'll just leave it to with a suggestion to beef up your like advisory board with EMS professionals. Paramedics, folks who work within the EMS system. Even people who run agencies, because I think as you grow your company, you will discover that there's a lot of regulations and a lot of interplay, because it's a very traditional market that you may not expect. And so really anticipate that like in advance. And also, think about your certification deadline. Our certification deadline is 2025, and we're a single-seat aircraft. So when you say 2026, maybe have a slide that says like how you're going to get there and like who the cert guy is on your team, like how you anticipate, getting there so quickly. To back that up, because it may come off as a little bit, like investors may kind of feel like maybe you're not aware of some of the challenges. So just have a slide that talks about the fact that you are aware that this is how you're going to be. This is your exact plan with YASA.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your advices.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Perfect.
Sorry, we're going to have to move to the next session. So we're going to have to cut this short. I'm going to invite James Dunthorne from Neuron to come on next. James is the founder, and he's going to take us through a presentation and some questions after. Take it away, James.
Oops. Okay, can you hear me okay?
All good,
excellent. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining me. James Dunthorne from Neuron Innovations. So in terms of our team, I'm our founder, and we've got a very, very strong team in terms of across the aviation sector and in software. So my expertise is in drone technology, studying collision avoidance technology for drones during my PhD. Neil Greenwood is our air traffic control expert, used to be managing director for NATS Asia Pacific region. Alex Kowalski is an ex-BA airline pilot and started up a leading SaaS company in drone technology in the UK. And Nick is our software lead and chief architect, who's a global expert in distributed ledger and compiler technology. So we all know what the dream is in the aviation sector. The dream is air taxis flying around, drones delivering medical supplies. We've seen a lot of that in the presentations up to now. There's a lot of companies relying on this future ecosystem from happening. But the reality is we still look up in our skies and there is no drones around. How many drones did you see this morning on your way to work? If you look up at the sky now, there's not a lot out there. Why is that? Why are we not seeing this technology out there at the moment? And the chief problem is infrastructure. We are not yet ready for this to happen because it's not safe to do so. The regulator requires a drone or an unmanned aircraft without a pilot on board to carry some or have some form of detect and avoid capability. This is written in CAP 722, but there's no systems out there at the moment able to do that. Now, if you listen to some of the leading experts around Europe, they're coming to a consensus that detect and avoid doesn't necessarily have to be on board. It could actually be done by ground-based infrastructure, and this is our play. So what's the problem then with developing this infrastructure? Well, radar. It's very expensive. These things are millions, if not tens of millions of pounds to install these. They're non-cooperative, which is fantastic because you can see anything. It doesn't need to be carrying any form of transponder on board, but it can't see small drones. It's not good enough. There are a few radar systems out there which can see small drones, but they're even more expensive. So what's the alternative? Well, we could use transponders. These are very low cost. However, they require the aircraft to be cooperative. So those aircraft have to be carrying an onboard sensor such as ADS-B or FLARM or a MODES transponder for them to be detected on the ground. And the problem is that these systems aren't interoperable. So a FLARM sensor cannot see an ADS-B transmitter, for example. So how do we actually build up this picture of what's going on in the airspace? And this is where Neuron come into the equation. So we've developed a surveillance as a service. And what we do is we combine multiple data sources from ground-based transponder receivers, from radar systems out of airports, and from drone technology itself. So from the ground control station, which the pilot's flying from, it's already collecting all the data from the drone. So we can take that feed straight off of that aircraft. Sometimes called networked remote ID is quite a common sense. What we do is we pull all that data together and create a trusted airspace picture with our proprietary data fusion algorithms. And we inject that straight into the pilot's app. So the app that the pilot's flying behind the screen they're able to see the air traffic around them. And in the future, we actually believe we can inject this into the pilots onboard aircraft as well, via things like TSB. So what's that market worth? Well, in 2026, from a variety of sources, we took a midpoint, and they estimate around about 2.7 billion flights per annum from drone technology within that sort of 5 to 6 year period. And we're focused on markets which are federated, so we're not going for centralized markets or centralized controlled ATC. We're going for more federated systems such as Europe, America, and parts of Asia and Africa. In terms of our serviceable obtainable markets, we're aiming at the moment to go and deploy this technology in certain territories. So we're not necessarily selling to drone operators directly. We're actually trying to capture countries through our approach. And by doing that, we think we can capture around about 360 million flights per annum. Now, our business model takes a 20% commission on data sales. So we operate a two-sided market. So people who provide data into our network, we pay them, and people who want to consume data, we charge them, and then we charge a service fee on top. And that equates to around about £1.29 per flight to be able to provide that trusted airspace picture to enable their beyond visual line of sight operation. And we believe that will generate us just under £500 million worth of revenue. There are other revenues we could exploit as well: insurance, law enforcement, weather sort of data as well. There's all these other types of data we can feed through this model. So what does that product look like? So really, our product is a distributed network, and it's an API-driven microservices which are deployed on top of a scalable and patentable distributed network architecture. We've got one of the leading experts globally doing the architecture for us, and we're developing this to aviation-grade software assurance, so ED109A, assurance level 4 currently. That network is actually run and governed by other companies. So we don't believe through an infrastructure play that we can actually run and own that network by ourselves. We believe that needs to be owned by others. We then have a sensor which is able to connect, or a device which is able to connect sensors to our network, and that's open source. So why federate? Why do we need to federate? Well, just imagine Google coming in and they wanting to fly their drones, so they deploy infrastructure across the UK. And Amazon come in, they want to fly their drones, but Google aren't really keen on that. So what they do is they say, we're not going to offer you our services. So Amazon have to deploy their infrastructure as well. So what we end up with is replicated infrastructure, waste of money, waste of resources, and certainly not the solution. Who are our competition out there? So we have a number of competitors. Our most pertinent one is Hidden Level, who just raised their Series A at a valuation of $86 million. Their solution is built to assured standards. They also are sensor agnostic, so they're able to inject any sensor into their model, but they don't have a scalable incentivization model or a federated architecture, which is something that's really important when we start deploying this globally. In terms of our progress, we've won just under $630,000 worth of grants. We've managed to go and obtain a bank loan, and we've got 3 angel investors on board. We've got some traction as well. We've got partnerships with over 20 innovators in the sector. I'm sure you'll notice many of them up there. And we've got integrations with 2 drone manufacturers, 2 sensors, and we're supported by the UK regulator. In terms of the product, we've built an MVP. It's alpha launch ready. We're running testing at the moment. We've got UK patent in process, which is with an attorney at the moment. And we've already delivered the UK's first short-ship drone delivery, which was done off the Angus coast up in Scotland through the MediDrone project. So how do we actually go to market with this solution? So we're establishing drone zones across the country in the UK. We're working with Telefonica and BT to be able to do that. We're then supporting drone manufacturers to be able to integrate with this software. and to be able to fly off the back of that. And that requires some regulatory assistance as well. So we have to help them with their operational safety cases to be able to get their permissions to fly. But they're already in that game already. They're quite coherent. We just provide our sort of expertise. And this is all funded by local authorities and governments at the moment. This is the starting point, but we believe that once we get to scale and this starts kicking off, these things will just sort of start happening by themselves, and we won't need to sort of prop up the market so much. In terms of our roadmap, we've got an alpha product at the moment. We're establishing our drone zones within the month. We're filing a patent very shortly, closing our round in November. We're doing our beta launch in January next year. We're hoping to achieve our software assurance in May next year, and to do our full BV loss in June 2022, with a look to do our Series A shortly after. In terms of what our ask is, we're looking for 500K for 10% of our company to hire our teams, establish our digital presence, to create these drone zones and deploy them, and to develop our overseas activities. And we believe that we can offer investor exits in 12 to 18 months at a Series A, or 3 to 5 years with an IPO or buyout from a large mobile network operator. And that's me. Thank you for listening, and that's Neuron.
James, thanks for that presentation. It was great. I'm going to invite Dean and Yesh on stage to present a quick question or comment. Dean, if you'd like to kick us off.
There we go. James, great presentation, very interesting. I have a question for you around scaling this business up, which is this sort of a winner-take-all business, or is it a winner-take-all business by region? How do you think about that, and how do you think about sort of the minimum efficient scale, by geographic footprint?
Yeah, so I think at the moment it's a little bit like a social network in a way. Once you've got critical mass, then it's going to be very difficult to actually topple it. Now, the other consideration is that I don't think a centralized solution is going to work. No government is going to allow a single company to control their skies. So, and we're the only company out there with a federated model for this solution at the moment. So I think being first to market is also a huge thing for us. We might see other business models pivot towards ours in the future. So that's always a risk, but I think we're already ahead with the distributed architecture and federated model, which is backed up by the governance council. So I think that's really what's going to go and build us the scale. And the fact that we're collaborating with third parties. We're not trying to do this all by ourselves. We're actually offering revenue incentives for people to run nodes in our network. We're offering revenue incentives for mobile network operators to deploy sensors. So we're actually relying on the community to help us build this, and we're already getting very, very good feedback.
Great, thank you.
Would you like to?
So first, to Dean's point, very interesting, James, because I see this and I see semblance of a UTM system that others talk about. I see a semblance of a meta layer for a UTM system. I see this as a digital network that an operator or an OEM can use or buy. So looking at all these different things that are going through my head, right? Question to you, what is your vision for this product? Do you see this product as a standalone product, or do you see this product as a solution that gets integrated into somebody else's final offering?
So I think it's a very good question. I think there's probably a couple of steps in there. I think UTM is about 5 years away, personally. I think at the moment, what we need is we need to be able to feed that airspace picture into drone pilots so that they can sit behind their computer screens and fly remotely. So that's the first step. And then once we've got that, you're going to then start seeing automation coming in, and that's where the UTMs will really kick in and start establishing those relationships.
So what is then other than the shared federated aspect of your solution, what is the difference between what you're trying to do versus another UAS traffic management solution?
Yeah, so we don't manage any traffic at all. We tell them where the traffic is, and I think this is the problem why UTM has struggled to go and gain huge amounts of traction, is because you can't manage traffic unless you know where the traffic is, and we do that for them.
Brilliant. Okay, Thanks so much, James.
That's awesome. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks, James, for a lovely presentation. We're going to go up next to Dan de Kloot Melancon from Sky Stations. He's a CEO and co-founder. So I invite Dan to come up, share some slides, and kick us off with his presentation. Over to you, Dan.
All right, thank you so much. Let me set this up. Oops. All right, you should be seeing the intro slide. Hi, my name is Dan de Kloot Melancon. I'm the CEO and founder of Sky Stations. We're based in Houston, Texas, and we're building the future of flight at scale. So our vision is to make air taxis an everyday experience for 1 billion people. And there are enormous opportunities right now for synergies. And this is rewriting the business models of mobility as a service between automotive and aviation electrification. And it's not just Hyundai. You see many other pairings between Joby and Toyota, Airbus and Audi, Archer and Stellantis, and Boeing and Porsche. The problem, though, is that there's the need for infrastructure. And this is both on the automotive side. Corner stores are currently reluctant to add DC fast chargers just due to the cost and the current low demand. And on the aviation side, air taxi operators need an entire network of easily accessible locations with DC fast chargers so that urban air mobility can take off. And this is a common issue that's listed in almost every advanced air mobility and urban air mobility market study. The big question, though, is this a separate problem or is this the same problem? And we see this as the same problem and the same solution. This is a Sky Station. This is an urban airport. This is how we build the future of flight at scale. We build it on synergies. We see 100 Sky Stations in 100 cities by 2040 as an everyday experience that supports electric cars and electric aircraft for both cargo flights and air taxi operations. We work with existing corner store locations to add boarding gate, stairs, and elevator, and then new structural vertipads based on the air taxi volume modeling. So we can add 1 pad, 2 pads, 3 pads, whatever's required. Oops. Sorry about that. And we're building a platform to bring these eVTOL aircraft companies together with the corner stores. So our Station IQ platform becomes a software as a service for this urban airport. Sky Station IQ manages the VertiStation operations. And it was really great hearing the presentations already because we're looking to tie in with additional partners, very much like D3 and Neuron. And what we've done is we've asked for feedback on our solution. And this is the feedback we got. It's awesome work. You got a lot of things right, figuring out a compact footprint that converts gas stations over the next 20 years, which is ideal in terms of future distribution required. And everybody on here knows Mark. So, and we wish him very, well with his new endeavor for Whisper.Aero. The market, you've seen this many times already, $9 trillion base case from Morgan Stanley, urban air mobility representing roughly 20% of that, so 1.8 trillion. And we see the near-term opportunity to have $8 million of revenue in 2024 and $35 million in revenue by 2026. Our business model is very familiar. It's air taxis charged for landing and night storage, charging, and boarding gate fees. And then we generate our revenue based on the monthly subscription for the locations that are set up as Sky Stations. Competitors are talking about vertiports, not vertistations. And our focus is on the customer. We want to get them from the car to the aircraft in 100 steps in less than 1 minute time. And we want to do this at the lowest cost. And we believe that this is attainable because we're starting with existing facilities that have the majority that's needed to run an urban airport already. So we're adding the cost of just the vertipad and the boarding gate. It's not an expensive greenfield development like many of the other solutions out there. Our traction to date, we incorporated Sky Stations in August of 2020. We've started with an Aviator trademark registration. Our first website went live in October of 2020. I've gone full-time as of April, so we're 3 months in now. You've completed the Sky Stations renderings, what you've seen. We've started engaging with investors and working on a patent. And we've also been getting really good feedback from the eVTOL companies that we've engaged with in regards to memorandum of understanding discussions and partner discussions. Our team and advisors are hand-picked experts in aviation, energy, and operations. So I've spent the last 15 years in international oil and gas. I was frustrated trying to make meetings all over large urban areas and limited due to the traffic congestion in those areas. I've spent time in the United States Marine Corps, flying on CH-46 and 53 helicopters, flown offshore in oil and gas, so I understand the benefits of these air operations and air transports. Tony Rosich is our financial advisor. He's been a serial chief financial officer for the last decade. Chris White has flown Apache and Black Hawk helicopters in the United States Army. Vamsi Damaraju is an enterprise architect at ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. Warren Postler is a serial entrepreneur helping us with our endeavors to get Sky Stations launched, as is Ryan Micheletti, who is leading operations at Founders Institute. And Ed Tovar is a fellow Marine who has been the program manager in the past for engaging with DARPA. So our go-to-market milestones, we're looking to close pre-seed funding round here by the end of Q3, and then moving on and continuing the push for letters of intent from the eVTOL aircraft operators as well as corner stores, along with building out our Sky Station Alpha MVP hardware and completing the Sky Stations IQ beta platform. And we intend to showcase these at the Bell Alliance Airport in Dallas or in Fort Worth during the air show, and also put this in front of the audience at Wings Over Houston, so that we're engaging with the customers directly and with the communities that we're going to be setting up Sky Stations. And then go into a further seed funding with operations starting in 2023 and scaling in 2024. So this is infrastructure. We are asking for $750,000 to help us with this first 12 months of funding so that we can build the team, build our Sky Stations, file our IP, and secure our LOIs. So this is Sky Stations. Again, we're building the future of flight at scale as an everyday experience for 1 billion people. We are looking for partners, advisors, and investments. I appreciate all the time and attention that you've given us. Thank you, Dean and Jim, Yesh, and Katerina, and Yvonne. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan. That was great. I'm going to invite Jim and Yesh to present either a question or some comments. Jim, if you'd like to kick us off, please.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, good job. Really interesting presentation, really interesting idea. Obviously, there are a lot of people thinking about what are we going to do for UAM? Where are we going to land the aircraft? Where are we going to recharge them? And this is somewhat novel to me anyways, at least using corner stores and gas stations in this way with this amount of focus. So I do have a kind of a number of questions. For one, can you describe what your patent is? I do think it's a good idea, but what necessarily is patentable about this?
So we have two hardware products, the one that I've shown, and we have a second hardware product that is a mobile and modular sky station. And this is the market for the defense market. So working in the Marines, you have to move equipment around in TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units. And so the sky station patent is around that hardware solution so that you can set up and tear this down in just, a few simple hours. And we see this on a commercial space and the civilian side for being able to address different events, sporting events, concerts, conferences, having temporary sky stations that you would bring into a racetrack somewhere for just a weekend event. So it's meant as, that's my background. My background is working for oil and gas service companies. So, we're working on integrated solutions to provide temporary solutions for these events.
Got it. And if I could go for one more, I'm curious about your rollout plans and also how it relates to your business model. Are you coming into these existing stations and saying, we'll share the cost, or, we'll take the cost burden as long as we have ongoing fees associated with this all? Or are you coming in and trying to find partners who will basically pay you to set this up and then you split fees into the future? How do you envision that?
Right now, it's very flexible. So I've had this question already before in regards to additional investors. We likely see this as some type of shared investment between the local corner store itself and with sky stations in regards to our hardware solution. And this may be part of the software as a service that, on a hardware side, you can depreciate it. So you can depreciate it over a long series of time. So that this would be just a tacked on monthly depreciation for funding these infrastructures.
Yes, would you like to take the next question?
Not so much questions, but Dan, really cool in terms of the idea. Definitely love the mobile concept. I think it definitely has lots of avenues and of application utilization in the near term, not just on the DoD side, but also, like you said, the recreational element. But going back to the sky station, the permanent structure, just a few more inputs and thoughts than questions.
Yeah.
Word of caution on permitting and zoning. The corner stores, the gas stations, the way they're set up today, they are zoned and permitted for very specific reasons. To add extra structure or to repurpose or reutilize them is going to require a significant amount of effort and a change in those kind of regulations and laws that are set forth. Along with that comes public acceptance, where the gas stations and the stores are currently located. They are, there's a reason why they've not been able to add more or have had to remove some that already existed because of the public aspects, especially in where I live in Northern Virginia and other places. So something to watch out for there. And the last two are very specific to your solution. Infrastructure needs, the energy aspect of it for an aircraft versus a car, massively different. One aircraft is about 10 cars worth of power to charge for a trip. So, you may need a different type of infrastructure. So I see your partners listed. Good that you have some utility partners. You're going to require them, a lot more of them. And last one is certification. Please add that to your timeline. That is probably going to be a hurdle, likely one of the biggest obstacles along with public acceptance in terms of getting through to do the non-greenfield approach, especially with corner stations and gas stations. So those are my inputs, but great idea, great concept. I think it definitely has a play in the market in terms of what air mobility requires to fully commercialize. So
I appreciate that. Again, we've been following the market on the ground side. Norway has rolled out a Circle K location with 6 300 kilowatt DC fast chargers. So, we know these movements are being put into place to support the ground infrastructure because it's not a stake in the ground. You know, everybody's looking forward as to how fast the cars are going to be able to charge in the future and how fast these aircraft are going to charge.
If I may just recommend one more thing to that, because this triggered alternative use case, then for passenger, consider like, medium to lightweight cargo drones. Those become like perfect for the type of locations you're talking about. For local distribution and setting up local network from a cornerstone or a gas station becomes a lot better. It definitely has value as far as I can tell, Dan, if that's not something you're considering.
Yeah, if you saw in the photos, the colored cubes, those are drone-in-a-box solutions. And we have an elevator not just for ADA regulation, but also for cargo operations. So,
perfect. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks, Yesh and Jim and Dan for the presentation. We're going to run to the last of the companies today. That's going to be Teletron, and I'd like to invite Colin Hilton, the founder, to come up and share some slides and his presentation. So over to you, Colin.
Okay, well, thanks to Revolution for the opportunity and the panel for sticking around. The presentation's in two parts, a fairly brief PowerPoint and then a practical demonstration of how we construct one of these airframes for the drone. The presentation itself is on the there's a link on the blog. If you go to teletron.com, you want to look at it again, there's a link there on the blog. So all being well, are you able to see that? I think
yeah, Colin, we can see the slides. Please go ahead.
Great stuff. Okay, the first, I'll leave you to go through those, but basically the first slide points to the fact that historically there's been a preference for people to travel alone on forms of transport. I mean, I myself spent 6 years flying at Heathrow, and after flying at 35,000 feet all day, the commute home was something of a decompression, and I'm sure it is for many people. But if you look at the bottom line there, you can see the fleet in the US. The for-hire or taxi units are around 6,000, although most of those will be furloughed at the moment, along with the airliners. But if you look at the GA figure, that's 205,000 airframes, and most of those will have been flying throughout the pandemic, and indeed many with just the one pilot or passenger on board. That's a pic I like from the 1930s. It's a Hoover wagon when the economy was such that people reverted literally to horsepower again. And this is, the point of this slide really is that the people designing eVTOLs have often underestimated the difficulties of vertical flight in particular. And the response has been to add more electrical motors, which kind of defeats the object of the vehicle being simpler in the first place. And what most designers forget is that both rotary wing and fixed wing aircraft have been, in the final analysis, able to glide. And just at the bottom point there is, we're really asking, is there a market for an entry-level means of personal flight? The picture there is just, that's an ATR-42, which I spent several hundred hours flying, but adding more motors introduces its own complications. The aircraft itself, it's designed to be as simple as possible, as simple to construct as possible, and as cheap as possible to operate. So these are all just cases of where simple designs have appealed, if the cost has been right, to a great number of people over a great many years. My favorite, I think the big ballpoint pen, over 100 billion unit sales. And indeed the IKEA chair at the bottom there, 30 million since 78, was designed by a Japanese guy. And as a contract airline captain working around the world, I've constructed several of those myself in one apartment or another. The picture, that was the original, the first thing to be mass produced were the pulley blocks for the Royal Navy. Even back in the early 1800s, the Navy needed 100,000 per year. And it was Brunel who mechanized the process, because prior to that, they were just put together by outside contractors or artisans. In terms of the team, you'll see that most of us have a flying background, whether myself, Pete, my colleague, who's built a software company and sold it and is now into aviation ventures. Bruno, he sells power systems for drones. He just sold 150 motors, I think, to a company in San Francisco who are supplying the US military. And then all the people there with an asterisk have operated or are running their own companies concurrently. So we have some business experience as well as flying experience. In terms of the flyer itself, we were the only one out of nearly 1,000 entrants to appear in the 24 that got to NASA Amy's last year with something that looked like it might fly. And we've stuck with, we've made the thing as simple as possible and stuck with open propellers, but there's a patented protection system to go with that. We had something more complicated, but eventually I was actually contacted by a colleague in California who pointed out that Jump sold about $1.5 million worth of advance tickets on 10-minute joy rides. And he said there's a market for that, but it's got to be simple, it's got to be easy, and it's got to be safe. That's the vehicle itself. And the only thing I would say about that is Richard Branson took to space, in fact, over the weekend. And it was Bert Rutan who said back in 1994 that space ought to be more accessible to the general public. And really what we're trying to achieve is to make flying itself more accessible to the general public. So if you can, that's great. How much have we got? Right, 4 minutes to go. Don't go away. So to build what we have, I've just gone for off-the-shelf products. One pop rivet, one 18-gauge alloy section, one tube connector, 1.5mm sheet aluminium, and insulation foam. And that's the ingredients. And what we took to California originally was this basic center section, which produces a drone. And it's what we show the FAA at Half Moon. They were very impressed with the simplicity of the structure. And you'll notice that we've got the connections and the standard off-the-shelf products for bolting that to the airframe. The airframe itself, I mean, this is fine for a drone. It's been flown as a drone. It was patented originally in Germany in 2014. And there's a video on YouTube. A guy builds a drone out of Lego. And this is basically the structure he opts for as the most practical. But it becomes altogether more practical at scale once you lock it into an airframe. Once it's there, it acts as a shear web, which keeps the airframe itself compact and rigid. And we use the tube connectors. So we need propeller clearance. And so they just bolt on. And they fit with adhesives and rivets. And that gives us a structure like a table. So a bit of clearance for the propellers. And then we go one stage further. And to that we add a set of skids, like so. And then to complete the operation, that's just the motors. And for the motors, we use 4-way connectors. and then the motors just slide on. A bit like fitting a spare wheel to a car. This is keeping me fit. Okay. And then like so, the standard fitting for the pièce de résistance is the seat. I'll hold that a bit further back. You've got a better view. Okay. That's that. Very physical presentation for you.
Colin, thanks. A great finish to your presentation. I'd like to invite all the judges up onto screen, and unfortunately, we have time for one question for Colin, and then we've got to really go into the next bit, which is your results. So does anyone have one question for Colin?
How do you control?
Oh, sorry.
How do you control it?
Oh, it's at the moment that the version we're building in the UK is under £55, so it can be flown as a remote-controlled half-scale model, both in the UK and the US. But we intend to build in the States at full scale, and to begin with, it'll be a sort of fly-by-wire. So you'll have the remote control transmitter on your lap, and it'll be transmitting directly to the flight controller, which is underneath your seat. Fly-by-wire. I used to fly the Airbus.
I've never seen anybody build an aircraft in 10 minutes before. That was pretty cool.
Well, I think Yesh was saying everything in aviation takes a long time, so we're
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Colin, thanks so much. We're going to just have a quick discussion with the judges and have their thoughts. But thank you so much for your presentation and that amazing assembly.
Cheers.
Does anyone, Dean, do you want to kick us off with your initial thoughts on the presentations we've seen today?
Yeah, so it'd take a long time to go through all of them. My favorite pitch was Neuron Innovations. I liked it because it had a more incremental approach to a really, really big thorny problem. And I like the federated. I'd love to learn more about the federated system, but I think that's the right way to go. Something that's very flexible and not monolithic. My biggest concern about it is, how do you get something like that to scale, which is always kind of the challenge with networked businesses. So that was my top choice.
Amazing. We also have a poll now in case the audience wants to vote on their favorite companies. Jim, would you like to go through your comments and favorite one?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of good presentations today. A lot of good companies. So good job on which companies you guys chose. I think I would have to probably. For me, it's either I think Neuron Innovations or Sky Stations. I think they both serve really great purposes and are really great concepts, but maybe I could lean towards Sky Stations just because I like the idea of using existing infrastructures, and I think in general more EV charge stations are going to be needed, and finding a way to integrate that into the needs of eventual UAM and potentially drone use is all kind of an interesting concept.
That's great. Katrina, your comments and verdict?
Yeah, I am going to have to be a little boring and agree with everyone that I was also very impressed with Neuron. I felt like out of all the presentations, that one was the most well thought out and had kind of a more complete, holistic understanding of how the business would work. So yeah, unfortunately, I am not going to be much of a dissenting voice here.
That's fine. That's great. Yesh, how about yourself?
I was sort of, there's like, more on the hardware ones. I like the software aspects, right? Whether it's the Vistronic D3 or Neuron. In terms of what the market needs right now, and especially with the movement and migration towards autonomous and electric aviation, passenger carrying as well as cargo, I try to make it different and not be, sorry, to say the same answer that everyone else said. Like, Neuron has the most value is what I see. However, to Dean's point, I think Neuron needs a partner, whether it's a D3, an Altitude Angel, or someone else to create the product around their capability. Standalone, I'm not sure if knowing where something is enough. Knowing what to do about it and what you can do with that information is what's going to be critical. So Neuron is a great platform for information or the meta layer, but someone's got to convert it to a user interface or an actual usable, product. That's where I'm like torn, because I like Neuron, but at the same time, I see how Neuron and D3 could be a great alliance, in terms of like a startup, and they could create something that provides that end user element, usable aspect for the end user, but also a path that is scalable and allows for a federated open source based system that does not exist in the market today within all those suppliers. So, yeah.
Awesome, that's great. Just to remind everyone, we have the audience poll running. So if the audience would like to vote for their favorite company as well, please go ahead and do that. Dean, I'm interested because you've been at a few of the previous pitch competitions. I'm interested in your, how you think the innovation, the various companies that you must have seen at the different pitch competitions. How do you think that's evolving, and any common themes that you're noticing from this year's contestants?
Yeah, so there's clearly a lot more focus on infrastructure than there was at the first one of these that I did, and sort of what I'd say the nuts and the bolts of making the system work. 2 or 3 years ago, people were very focused on airframes, and absolutely nothing works if you don't have some new airframes that bring new costs and new possibilities. But what I liked about today is that people were bringing different ideas around how to glue the whole thing together, and I think that's just absolutely critical for making the entire ecosystem work. I thought that was very encouraging, and a good step forward for the industry.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to bring up, so it looks like Neuron has the judges' vote. So if we can bring up James, and we've got the audience that's voted for Sky Stations. So if we could bring up James, just have a quick, James, congratulations, you've won the pitch competition.
Brilliant. It's just fantastic to hear that the judges share our vision for the industry, and we think we're doing something really special. We're acting in a collaborative fashion. We want to collaborate with everyone. We're not trying. We're trying to, I guess, make the market work for everyone, and we believe this is an important step for that. So really, really great news, and thanks everyone for your votes.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. Thanks to all the companies pitching today. We had Distribution, D3 Technologies, Orca Aerospace, Neuron, Sky Stations, and Teletron. Thanks very much also to our expert judges, Dean Donovan, Yesh Premkumar, Jim Lockheed, and Katrina Barilov. Guys, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And congratulations to Neuron on winning Pitch by Revolution.Aero. You can look forward to reading about them in our next weekly newsletter. Sorry about that. And you can also watch presentations from the recently concluded Revolution.Aero Global 2021 up on our website, freely available to watch all 3 days. Thanks very much for joining us, and take care and have a good day.